Welcome to the virtual public scoping meeting for the US 380 Improvement Project from Coit Road to FM 1827. TxDOT appreciates your interest in the project and thank each of you for your participation. Please note, you can pause this presentation at any point to allow more time to view the slides. Given the unique circumstances of the COVID-19 outbreak along with TxDOT's commitment to protecting public health during this pandemic, TxDOT is conducting virtual public meetings until further notice to avoid in-person contact. At this time, the virtual format is being held in lieu of an in-person public scoping meeting. This presentation will cover the same information that the Dallas District would have shared at the in-person public scoping meeting. However, the comment process will be different. Details on how to submit a comment and how to have your questions addressed will be covered later in this presentation. You can also view all virtual public scoping meeting materials at drive380.com/CoitFM1827. This virtual public scoping meeting has been convened by TxDOT and it has 6 essential purposes. Explain the process for an environmental impact statement, also called an EIS. Present alternatives to be studied in the EIS. Provide the project's purpose and need. Share what TxDOT will consider during the project, present the schedule and project steps, gather public input. Scoping meetings help start the NEPA process for an EIS. NEPA stands for National Environmental Policy Act. During this phase of project development, TxDOT must evaluate all viable alternatives as well as changes to alternatives previously presented. An important part of the scoping process is the development and public review of the following documents. 1. Draft Purpose and Need Memorandum, which explains why TxDOT is developing a project and provides the basis for the evaluation of alternatives. 2. Range of Alternatives shows all alternatives being considered by TxDOT. 3. Methodology and level of detail for analyzing alternatives provides more details about how alternatives will be analyzed. 4. Coordination Plan is a plan and schedule for coordinating public and agency participation. These documents can be accessed at the meeting website. A preferred alternative will be identified near the end of the EIS process. A preferred alternative is an alternative that TxDOT concludes would best accomplish the project's purpose and need and considers the factors in the alternatives analysis. You will have the opportunity to provide official input on alternatives during a future public meeting and the preferred alternative during a future public hearing. The preferred alternative will move forward into detailed design, which is the next phase of project development and is anticipated to begin in 2022. Due to many factors that must be considered, the project development process can feel like it takes a long time. TxDOT is committed to moving as quickly as possible while making informed decisions that carefully consider input from the public, agencies, and other stakeholders. TxDOT and its project team encourages you to stay involved throughout the project development process. TxDOT previously conducted a feasibility study for US 380 in Collin County and presented a recommended alignment in May 2019 and finalized the feasibility study report in April 2020. The next step in project development is a more in-depth look at alternatives and environmental impacts. NEPA requires TxDOT, as part of the EIS process, to evaluate all viable alternatives considered and eliminated during the feasibility study, as well as others developed by TxDOT. It is important to note that TxDOT's recommended alignment from the feasibility study was based on the data collected during the feasibility study, and now that TxDOT is gathering more data that could change previously studied alignments or lead TxDOT to consider new alternatives. Ultimately, TxDOT must find an alternative that would best accomplish the project's purpose and need and considers the factors in the alternatives analysis. TxDOT is developing and presenting different alternatives to try to identify the one that is the least impactful alternative possible for this project. This, however, is a challenge due to the many constraints. Following this virtual public scoping meeting, comments will be considered and will be responded to in a public scoping meeting summary report, which will be posted on the meeting website. Comments can be submitted by submitting an online comment form at drive380.com/CoitFM1827. English or Spanish comment forms are available for download from the website. Mailing or emailing a written comment to Stephen Endress at the address on this slide. Recording a verbal comment via voicemail at 833-933-0439. Comments must be received or postmarked within 15 days of the meeting date, which is Friday, February 5th, 2021, to be part of the official virtual public scoping meeting record. Questions about this project can be directed to the TxDOT project manager, Stephen Indress, PE, at stephen.indress@txdot.gov. All virtual public scoping materials, including virtual public meeting room and interactive maps, can be found at www.drive380.com/CoitFM1827. You can also visit this site to find EIS documents and comment forms. Links to resources are also available at www.keepitmovingdallas.com/US380 EIS scoping meeting. Meeting notices may be found at www.keepitmovingdallas.com under Public Hearings and Meetings and on the Public Meetings and Hearings page on TxDOT.gov. In 2016, the Collin County Commissioner's Court identified US 380 as one of several priority roadways for study as a limited access roadway, which is also referred to as a freeway. No alignment was specified by Collin County. In 2017, leaders from Collin County, the North Central Texas Council of Governments, NCTCOG, and TxDOT agreed to develop a strategic roadway plan for the county. TxDOT was tasked with studying US 380. NCTCOG would evaluate other roadways including north-south routes, and Collin County would further study the Collin County Outer Loop. TxDOT concluded the most recent US 380 feasibility study for Collin County in April 2020. Collin County Feasibility Study Highlights. The US 380 Collin County Feasibility Study laid the groundwork for TxDOT's current evaluation by recommending a freeway alignment that would serve as a starting point for the EIS currently underway. This feasibility study was a good initial step as it allowed TxDOT to gather information early and discover issues that would need to be addressed as the project continued through the development process. Let's walk through some of the highlights from that study. Early in the feasibility study, TxDOT evaluated roadway options and various other modes of transportation such as transit, bicycle, and pedestrian travel. It was ultimately determined that these other modes were unable to independently relieve traffic congestion. Therefore, TxDOT continued to evaluate roadway options, which included the following: making no new improvements, constructing select grade separated interchanges, constructing a freeway. It was ultimately determined that the construction of a freeway was the best option for the region and met the study criteria. Through traffic analysis, TxDOT discovered that without improvements, US 380 will continue to experience a failing level of service, even if all the planned roadways in Collin County are built, including the Outer Loop. TxDOT developed over 150 freeway alignments and shifts in alignments during the Collin County feasibility study. One alignment option was constructing a freeway alignment along the existing US 380. However, TxDOT discovered that this option could impact and displace a large number of residencies and businesses, as well as impact possible environmental justice areas and historic properties. Then TxDOT also considered new location freeway alignments. Traffic analysis showed that new location alignments manage traffic congestion better than improving the existing US 380 alignment to a freeway. During this feasibility study, TxDOT received and responded to over 18,000 comments from the public. The majority of comments were supportive of a freeway. However, many concerns were expressed about the locations for the proposed alignments. The Collin County feasibility study resulted in TxDOT announcing its recommended alignment of a freeway to accommodate projected 2045 travel demand and provide a safe and accessible facility to support east-west travel across Collin County. In order to advance these projects through project development, the recommended alignment was segmented into 5 independent projects. The project we are presenting at this virtual public scoping meeting is shown in orange on the map. It extends along US 380 from Coit Road to FM 1827. The other corridors illustrated on the map are progressing through separate schematic design and environmental projects led by TxDOT. It is important to note that this project and this virtual public scoping meeting does not include information about the projects shown here in purple. This is the Spur 399 extension project from US 75 to US 380, and TxDOT will be hosting a separate virtual public scoping meeting about that project on February 23rd. Information on alternatives around McKinney National Airport will be presented at the Spur 399 public scoping meeting. The area for this project includes US 380 from Coit Road to FM 1827 in Collin County. The project area includes the area north of US 380 and includes the town of Prosper and cities of Frisco, McKinney, and New Hope. TxDOT has initiated the preparation of an EIS for the US 380 from Coit Road to FM 1827 project. The National Environmental Policy Act, known as NEPA, requires federal agencies to assess the environmental effects of projects prior to making decisions. An EIS is prepared when it is anticipated that a proposed project could significantly affect the quality of the human and natural environment. There are 3 categories of analysis that TxDOT can complete as a part of NEPA, of which an EIS is the most rigorous. This phase of the project is a more in-depth study than what was previously done and will build on information collected during the feasibility study. Adhering to NEPA is required on any project that would receive any federal funding. For this project, TxDOT is developing an EIS under an agreement with the federal government. Prior to December 16, 2014, the Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA, reviewed and approved documents prepared under the National Environmental Policy Act, known as NEPA. However, on December 16, 2014, the Texas Department of Transportation assumed responsibility for FHWA through a Memorandum of Understanding to review and approve certain assigned NEPA environmental documents. This Memorandum of Understanding between TxDOT and FHWA was updated on December 9, 2019. The review and approval process applied to this project. TxDOT will develop an EIS document in coordination with other public agencies. Notices for this public scoping meeting were advertised in the Dallas Morning News, Aldea, Collin County Commercial Record, Community Impact Frisco, Community Impact McKinney, McKinney Courier Gazette, and Prosper Press. Information is also available on the TxDOT.gov website under Hearings and Meetings Schedule and on www.keepitmovingdallas.com under Public Hearings and Meetings. The TxDOT Public Information Office also prepared a news media release to advertise this meeting. Let's focus on the EIS process, which began in the fall of 2020. We are currently in the scoping phase, as scoping occurs at the beginning of the EIS process. It is an open process involving the public and federal, state, and local agencies. The purpose of scoping is to help determine a range of issues, alternatives, and potential environmental impacts to be considered in the EIS. Input from the public and agencies is vital to the development of the EIS and will be used in determining the appropriate scope and content. TxDOT hosted a scoping meeting for agencies on October 29, 2020, and this virtual meeting is the public scoping meeting. Scoping meetings are different from a public meeting in that, a scoping meeting, TxDOT presents and gathers input on scoping documents. An evaluation or analysis of alternatives is not presented at a public scoping meeting, but it will be presented at the upcoming public meeting. A notice of intent was published in the Federal Register on December 11, 2020. This is the official notice that TxDOT will prepare an EIS for this project pursuant to NEPA. Following scoping, TxDOT will conduct an analysis of the alternatives, including multiple build alternatives and a no-build alternative. This will include thoroughly analyzing the alternatives for potential impacts to the human and natural environment, as well as various design specifications and criteria. This analysis includes a detailed evaluation that now includes field assessments and surveys. The analysis process is anticipated to extend from spring 2021 through fall 2021. TxDOT will host a public meeting in the fall of 2021 to present and gather input on reasonable alternatives, design schematics, and findings of the environmental studies. Between the fall of 2021 and summer of 2022, TxDOT will identify a preferred alternative and further develop its schematic design. A draft EIS, which includes the preferred alternative, will be prepared and reviewed at a public hearing expected to be held in the summer of 2022. The combined final EIS and record of decision identifies the preferred alternative and is expected to take place at the end of 2022. This will mark the completion of the environmental review process. It is also important to note that outreach with agencies, stakeholders, and the public will take place throughout the process. Major tasks that will be completed during the development of the EIS include more detailed evaluation and design, as well as continued coordination. TxDOT will complete a detailed evaluation of engineering and environmental considerations during this phase of project development, including preparing the methodology and level of detail for analyzing alternatives, which is available on the meeting website and further explains how TxDOT will analyze alternatives during the preparation of the EIS. Develop plans to address future travel demand. Further analyze population and employment growth. Design a freeway to current roadway design and safety standards. Conduct field assessments and surveys to determine locations of resources such as wetlands, floodplains, and culturally sensitive areas. Evaluate any potential noise, air quality, and community impacts. Complete more in-depth economic impact studies. TxDOT must evaluate many engineering, environmental, and community factors before identifying a preferred alternative. A list of factors is presented on the slide. Some of the criteria were considered during the feasibility study, such as impacts and displacements. You will see additional categories that require TxDOT to conduct in-depth and field studies to gather the data that will be used in the evaluation, such as floodplains, noise, and historic/archaeological preservation. The methodology and level of detail for analyzing alternatives document posted on the meeting website provides much more detail about analyzing alternatives. TxDOT is in the process of gathering the data for many of these categories that must be completed before alternatives are evaluated during this EIS. Part of the analysis is public input. That said, when providing public scoping meeting comments, please let TxDOT know if there are any other resource categories that should be addressed or if there are any additional or updated study methodologies that should be considered. Once TxDOT has gathered the data and drafted an alternatives analysis matrix, a public meeting will be held to share the results, present reasonable alternatives, and gather input. Because of all the data that needs to be gathered and the time it takes to complete the analysis, that public meeting is currently anticipated to be held in the fall of 2021. During the EIS process, TxDOT will also complete schematic design and preliminary engineering tasks such as determine how much right-of-way is needed for the entire project, customize typical sections for different locations, develop ramp locations and design interchange configurations, determine the constructability of the project, calculate more detailed cost estimates, complete drainage design, and consider bicycle and pedestrian accommodations. TxDOT will also complete more coordination with agencies, other stakeholders, and the public during this phase of project development, including a coordination plan and schedule has been developed and is available on the meeting website. This plan also includes details of TxDOT's public involvement activities that are planned during the development of the EIS. Coordinate with resource agencies such as the United States Army Corps of Engineers, Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, North Central Texas Council of Governments, and others. TxDOT has invited federal, state, and local agencies as well as tribal nations to be involved in the development of the EIS as cooperating or participating agencies. Continue to work with area cities, towns, and the county to update future development and transportation plans. To the extent possible, TxDOT will work to make sure that this project complements the current and planned roadway network in the region. Many other planned projects will need to be considered, such as the Spur 399 Extension Project, US 380 from west of County Road 26, to Coit Road Project, US 380 from FM 1827 to CR 560 Project, Collin County Outer Loop Project, and SH5 Improvements Project. Continue to coordinate with major utilities such as North Texas Municipal Water District. Throughout the project area, US 380 is currently a 4 to 6 lane arterial roadway and within a 130 to 180 foot wide right-of-way. Existing congestion on US 380 in rush hours is rated in engineering terms as having an F level of service. This means that the number of vehicles on the road exceeds the capacity of the roadway, causing a significant drop in travel speeds and an increase in congestion or delay in traffic. TxDOT has developed a purpose and need for the project. The Purpose and Need Memorandum is available for review on the meeting website. The purpose of the proposed project is to manage congestion and improve east-west connectivity and safety across the project area. The project is needed due to regional population growth, increasing traffic congestion, and crash rates that are higher than the statewide average. Project needs will be discussed in more detail on the following slides. Let's now focus on the need for the project due to population growth in and around the project area. In 2019, Collin County had a population of 1,034,730 people, making it one of the most populous counties in Texas, and has experienced a 32.4% increase in population between 2010 and 2019, according to 2019 U.S. Census data. According to the Texas State Demographer's 2014 population projections by migration scenario data, over the next 30 years, Collin County could anticipate an increase in population of up to 160 to 170%. The city of McKinney has experienced even greater growth between 2010 and 2019, with an increase in population of 51.9%, along with the town of Prosper, which has experienced a 158% population increase over the same period, according to 2019 U.S. Census data. The project is also needed due to traffic congestion along the existing US 380, shown in this slide as current and forecasted travel demand. US 380 across Collin County has experienced a 30% increase in the number of vehicles on the road from 2010 to 2016. Areas including western McKinney have experienced a 45 to 50% increase in traffic volumes during this period. As growth continues, increased congestion and reduced mobility will also continue over the years to come. Let's now focus on the need for the project due to the level of service of the existing US 380. Level of service measures the quality of vehicle traffic service based on performance measures like vehicle speed, density, and congestion. Currently, US 380 operates at a level of service F due to high traffic volumes and limited roadway capacity. The project is also needed due to the higher than statewide average crash rates on the existing US 380. According to TxDOT's Crash Records Information System, CRIS database, between 2010 and 2016, US 380 within the city limits of McKinney experienced a 404% increase in crashes. These crashes can be attributed to overcapacity, closely spaced driveways, and lack of separation of high-speed and low-speed traffic within the corridor. There are many constraints that TxDOT must consider since the project area is rapidly developing and growing. Also, there are no major roadway improvements planned in this project area. Those two factors combined means that there are limited locations with minimal impacts for placement of new build alternatives. Constraints include the following: neighborhoods, existing businesses and residences, future developments, existing and future parks, wetlands, floodplains and streams, cemeteries, and utilities and water supply projects. You can view a preliminary interactive constraints map on the meeting website. The map will continue to be updated as the project progresses. Now let's walk through the proposed project. During the early stages of EIS development, TxDOT will consider 6 alternatives, including 5 build alternatives and the no-build alternative, which would leave US 380 as it is and would not construct a freeway. Build alternatives can be seen on the interactive map on the meeting website and include the green alternative, which is improving the existing US 380 into a freeway, and 4 new location freeway alternatives, which include the gold, brown, blue, and purple alternatives. The proposed roadway would accommodate an 8-lane freeway with frontage roads and would generally require 340 to 400 feet of right-of-way. The roadway would typically provide for 4 12-foot travel lanes in each direction, inside and outside shoulders, and one-way frontage roads on both sides. Connectivity to the existing and planned roadway network would be provided through grade-separated interchanges at major arterial roadway crossings. In an effort to minimize impacts, TxDOT may consider removing frontage roads where it is feasible, and some areas of the freeway may be elevated on bridges or lowered below grade. TxDOT will further evaluate the compression and/or depression of roadways in select areas, such as compression in the area between Tucker Hill and Stonebridge Ranch neighborhoods, and depression in the area south of the Bloomdale Farms neighborhood and north of the Heatherwood neighborhood. Let's now look at 5 build alternatives. The green alternative to improve the existing US 380 is composed of one segment shown here as segment F that connects Coit Road to FM 1827. Next, we look at new location build alternatives. The purple alternative is similar to the recommended alignment from the feasibility study between Coit Road and FM 1827. There are some small changes that you can view on the interactive map on the project website. The purple alternative is comprised of segments A, E, and D and is approximately 15.8 miles long. The purple alternative begins at the intersection of Coit Road and US 380 in the town of Prosper and travels around the north side of McKinney, turning south near US 75 and SH 5 to extend along the west side of the east fork of the Trinity River to connect back to existing US 380 and FM 1827. The blue alternative is comprised of segments A, E, and C for an approximate length of 15.6 miles. The blue alternative differs from the purple alternative between SH5 and existing US 380 east of McKinney, where the alternative follows that of segment C parallel to and east of the east fork of the Trinity River. The alternative would connect back to existing US 380 near FM 1827. The gold alternative, comprised of segments B, E, and D, is approximately 16.3 miles long and matches the brown alternative between Coit Road and SH5, where it turns south along the west side of the east fork of the Trinity River to connect to existing US 380 near Airport Drive and then follows the existing US 380 east to FM 1827. The brown alternative, approximately 14.8 miles long, is comprised of segments B, E, and C. It begins at Coit Road and existing US 380 and follows the existing US 380 to west of CR 2478, where it turns north and east to travel around the north side of McKinney, connects to US 75 and SH 5, and then follows the alternative east of and parallel to the east fork of the Trinity River to connect to existing US 380 near FM 1827. The brown alternative differs from the blue alternative in segment B. Ultimately, TxDOT must choose the best alternative for the entire Coit Road to FM 1827 project area, but for comparison purposes, has also divided the project area into 3 focus areas for public review. Essentially, there are 2 new location segments on the west side of the project area in Prosper, Frisco, and the west side of McKinney, a common segment in the central portion of the project area, and 2 new location segments on the east side of the project area east of McKinney. The green, purple, blue, brown, and gold alternatives just presented are comprised of different combinations of these segments linked end to end. All focus areas will include a no-build alternative and segment F. Focus Area 1 also includes segments A and B. Segment A follows existing US 380 from Coit Road to near the existing Ridge Road, where it turns north and connects to Bloomdale Road. Segment A is very similar to the TxDOT recommended alignment from the feasibility study. Segment B follows existing US 380 from Coit Road to west of FM 2478, also known as Custer Road, where it turns northeast to intersect with Custer Road and East 1st Street, then continues northeast to connect to Bloomdale Road near County Road 161 and the future extension of Ridge Road. TxDOT continues to try and develop the least impactful alternative possible in this focus area. However, this is a challenge due to the many constraints. There are many large neighborhoods in this area. Segments A, B, and F may be located near neighborhoods, but they do not intersect any existing neighborhood. Both McKinney and Prosper have proposed developments in the project area that are constantly being added and in various stages of approval by the city or town. An example of this includes new information provided by the town of Prosper in the fall of 2020, with future developments including a planned neighborhood. This new information will be further evaluated while developing the EIS. There are also major utilities such as the 72-inch Irving Water Line and North Texas Municipal Water District Water Line in this and other focus areas. Next, let's look at Focus Area 2. Segment E extends roughly along the alignment of existing Bloomdale Road through North McKinney, beginning near the existing intersection of CR 161 and Bloomdale Road on the west and SH 5 on the east. This segment includes a new multi-level interchange connection with US 75. Segment E is very similar to the TxDOT recommended alignment from the feasibility study and is a common segment in all new location build alternatives. TxDOT must also look at Segment F in all focused areas. Segment F in this focus area would impact and displace a large number of businesses such as Raytheon, one of McKinney's largest employers. Segment F in this area would also impact possible environmental justice areas and historic properties. There are also major constraints that TxDOT will have to consider in Focus Area 2. The location of Segment E is constrained by existing and planned developments and neighborhoods as well as existing and proposed utilities along Bloomdale Road. TxDOT is also federally required to avoid impacting any park if there is a more reasonable and feasible alternative available. Irwin Park is a large park in this area that Segment E does not directly impact. Between approximately CR 161 and Community Avenue, the feasibility study recommended alignment has shifted 80 feet to the north. This modification was made after coordination with the City of McKinney, North Texas Municipal Water District, and Collin County. This north shift will allow for the construction of a new major water delivery pipeline proposed to serve the needs in the area and also create a wider buffer between the freeway and the Heatherwood neighborhood. Through coordination efforts with the City of McKinney, TxDOT is also proposing a change in the area of the proposed freeway and US 75 and SH5. Segment E is shifted between 1/8 and 1/4 of a mile to the south in this area. The City of McKinney requested TxDOT consider this change because of its plans for Lod Howell Parkway to become a major economic hub. City leaders have been working with developers on proposed plans and access improvements. Let's move on to Focus Area 3. Segment C begins near SH5 and extends in a southeasterly direction across the Dallas Area Rapid Transit DART rail line and the East Fork of the Trinity River, then shifts to a more southerly direction east of and parallel to the East Fork of the Trinity River to connect to existing US 380 near FM 1827. Segment D also begins near SH5, extending in a southerly direction across the DART rail line east of the fork of the Trinity River and continues in a southerly direction west of and parallel to the East Fork of the Trinity River, connecting US 380 near Airport Drive, and following existing US 380 to the east to FM 1827. Segment D is based on TxDOT's feasibility study recommended alignment. Developing alternatives in this area is challenging because of the East Fork of the Trinity River encompasses a large part of Focus Area 3. Both proposed segments C and D impact the East Fork of the Trinity River floodplain. Should one of the segments be a part of the final preferred alternative, it would require TxDOT to provide mitigation to minimize impacts. Depending on the severity of the impacts, mitigation efforts may include elevating additional portions of the project on bridges and may require additional right-of-way. Based on initial evaluations, Segment D would have more floodplain impacts, require significantly more bridges and additional right-of-way, and ultimately cost more to construct per mile. In accordance with new federal guidance, TxDOT's goal is to complete the development of the EIS and schematic design within 2 years as shown on this slide. You can see that we are currently at the public scoping stage. At this time, the project team is collecting data, completing field investigations and surveys, as well as further developing a design schematic. TxDOT is working to obtain right of entry agreements from landowners for over 500 properties in the project area in order to complete field investigations and survey tasks. After this virtual public scoping meeting, TxDOT will conduct field investigations, begin the evaluation of environmental impacts, and screen and evaluate alternatives. TxDOT anticipates hosting a public meeting in the fall of 2021 to show and gather input on reasonable alternatives and share up-to-date project information with the public. After TxDOT evaluates input received at the public meeting, TxDOT will prepare technical studies and develop a draft EIS, which will include identifying a preferred alternative and conducting agency reviews. At that time, TxDOT will continue to develop the design schematic of the preferred alternative. The public will have the opportunity to provide input on the draft EIS and preferred alternative at a public hearing. After the public hearing, TxDOT will finalize the EIS and obtain a record of decision, also known as a ROD, which TxDOT anticipates would be in December of 2022. TxDOT can begin acquiring right-of-way needed for the project after a ROD has been issued and project funding is identified. TxDOT has begun to identify potential sources of funding for right-of-way acquisition and construction. After the ROD is issued, TxDOT can also begin final design, developing more detailed cost estimates, and coordinate with utilities. This phase of project development is expected to take anywhere from 2 to 4 years. Phased construction of the project would not begin until at least 6 to 9 years from now, and that is heavily dependent on TxDOT project needs and funding. Construction could last anywhere from 4 to 6 years. TxDOT encourages you to view the documents and information available at www.drive380.com/CoitFM1827 and provide us your comments. TxDOT is interested in comments on the project and all the documents listed on the screen. Again, it is important to note that a final alternative has not been chosen by TxDOT. All alternatives that you are being shown in this virtual public scoping meeting are conceptual and being shown with a 340 to 400 foot right-of-way width. The location of the alternative can still be shifted. The right-of-way width can still change before the preferred alternative is finalized. TxDOT anticipates a final preferred alternative will be presented at the public hearing in the summer of 2022. As a reminder, there are multiple ways to submit a comment. Following this virtual public scoping meeting, your comments will be considered and will be responded to in a public scoping meeting summary report, which will be posted on the meeting website. Thank you for your participation in this virtual public scoping meeting and your interest in this project.